You have been told that anger is a sign of strength, proof that you refuse to be walked over. Seneca said the exact opposite: anger is the surest evidence that you have already lost control of yourself. He called it a temporary madness, and he meant that literally, not as a figure of speech. Every one of us knows the feeling, the moment your calm breaks, the words you cannot take back, the hour of peace destroyed by 10 seconds you no longer even remember clearly. In this video we will examine Seneca's treatise on anger, de ira, and why the Stoics treated rage not as passion to be balanced but as a fire to be refused entirely. If the Stoics' approach resonates with you, subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Around the year 45 AD, Seneca wrote this work for his own brother, Novatus, who struggled with a violent temper. Its opening line is a warning: of all the emotions, none is more hideous, none more destructive to the one who holds it. Seneca begins de ira with a claim that would sound extreme to most modern ears. He compares the angry man, point for point, with the insane, and finds almost no difference between them. The flushed and swollen face, the trembling limbs, the wild and unsteady eyes, the speech that outruns coherent thought, these, he writes, are the marks of a mind that has surrendered its command. And what this reveals is that anger is not, for Seneca, a passion among others to be occasionally indulged. It is a specific kind of collapse. He was careful to distinguish anger from the involuntary flinch of the body. The startle at a loud noise, the shock at bad news, the physical jolt before the mind interprets anything, these Seneca called first movements, and he did not blame us for them because they precede judgment entirely. Anger proper, however, requires our consent. It is what happens when the mind reviews the offense, agrees that it demands retaliation, and gives itself over to the impulse. This is why he could call it madness rather than reflex, because madness too is a state the mind falls into and then acts from. The difference between anger and insanity, he concluded, is only one of duration. The madman is permanently deprived of reason, while the angry man is deprived of it briefly. But in the moment when it holds you, the loss is total, and no promise you made to yourself beforehand survives it. What Seneca said next explains why he disagreed with one of the greatest philosophers who came before him. Aristotle had taught, in the Nicomachean Ethics, that anger could be a virtue when felt in the right measure. To be angry at the right things, toward the right people, in the right degree, at the right time, and for the right length of time, this, for Aristotle, was the mark of good character. He believed the man who never grew angry at injustice was not virtuous but slavish, incapable of the indignation that a wrong deserves. Anger, correctly proportioned, was a servant of justice. Seneca rejected this entirely, and his reasoning is worth understanding. He argued that anger cannot be measured, because it is by its nature the enemy of measure. You cannot invite it in as a controlled servant and expect it to stay obedient, because once it enters, it takes the reins from reason completely. However useful the first spark might seem, the thing that follows obeys no proportion at all. This is why he wrote that it is easier to keep anger out than to govern it once admitted. His alternative was that justice and correction should come from reason alone, cold and deliberate, not from the heat of passion. A judge does not need to hate the criminal to sentence him. A father does not need to rage to correct his son. What this means is that everything Aristotle wanted anger to accomplish, Seneca believed reason could accomplish better, and without the collateral damage. But this raises a harder question: if anger begins as an involuntary spark, how much of it is actually within our control? Seneca's most precise psychological insight concerns the stages of anger. He identified 3 distinct movements, and only the first is beyond our power. The first is the involuntary stir, the jolt when you are insulted, the heat that rises before any thought. This we cannot prevent, because it is the body reacting faster than the mind can judge. To this point, Seneca says, we are not yet angry at all. We are merely affected. The second movement is the crucial one, because it is where choice enters. Here the mind considers the offense and forms a judgment: this was wrong, this must be answered, I am owed retaliation. It is at this stage that anger becomes anger, because it now has our consent. The third movement is the runaway state, where the impulse has broken free of reason entirely and pursues revenge regardless of consequence. Once you reach the third stage, Seneca warns, you are no longer steering. What this framework offers is enormously practical. It locates our freedom precisely at the second stage, in the instant between the spark and the ascent. We cannot stop the flush of heat, but we can refuse to endorse it. We can decline to add the judgment that turns a physical reaction into a full campaign of the will. This is why Seneca insisted that the battle against anger is won early, before it has gathered strength, because a passion refused at the door is weak, while one welcomed in becomes a tyrant. And yet, most people never fight this battle at all, because they have never counted what anger actually costs them. Seneca's argument against anger was not only that it is irrational, but that it is a spectacularly bad investment. He observed that no other emotion costs the one who holds it more. Fear at least keeps us alive by warning of danger. Grief honors what we have lost. But anger, he wrote, brings ruin on itself along with whatever it destroys, because it is willing to burn down the house to catch the thief. The angry man is prepared to harm himself in the act of harming another. He gave the image plainly: anger is like a falling rock that shatters upon the very thing it lands on. The person you rage against may feel a moment of your fury, but you carry the full weight of it: the racing heart, the sleepless night, the poisoned relationship, the decision you cannot undo. This is why Seneca argued that the injury of anger falls hardest on its owner. The offense that provoked you may have been small, but the response you chose can wreck what took years to build. There is a deeper cost he names as well. Anger corrodes the very faculty that makes us human, the capacity for reason and for calm judgment. Each surrender to it makes the next one easier, until the temper becomes a settled disposition rather than an occasional lapse. What this reveals is that the true price of anger is not paid in the moment but over a lifetime, in the slow deformation of character. So Seneca offered a remedy, and it is almost startling in its simplicity. The great weapon against anger, Seneca taught, is delay. Anger cannot survive postponement, because its whole nature is urgency. It demands to act now, immediately, before reflection can intervene. So the cure is to grant yourself the time that reason needs to return. The best remedy for anger, he wrote, is delay. Ask it not to forgive at once, but simply to judge, and its first violence will fall away, for the darkness that pressed upon the mind will either lift or grow lighter. He recommended concrete practices to buy that time. Do not answer in the moment. Remove yourself from the sight of what provoked you. When you feel the heat rising, become aware of it, and remember that you have felt it before and lived to regret acting on it. Seneca even described his own nightly practice, drawn from his teacher Sextius. At the end of each day he would examine his conduct, asking what fault he had cured, what habit he had resisted. He put every day on trial before himself, and this daily review kept anger from becoming a stranger's secret in his own house. What makes this remedy so powerful is that it does not require you to win an argument with your own passion in the heat of the moment. It asks only that you not act yet. The delay does the work, because anger, denied its immediate expression, simply cannot sustain itself. This is the most practical inheritance of de ira: you do not have to defeat your anger. You have to outlast it. And in the final teaching, Seneca turns the whole argument inward, toward a truth about ourselves that most people spend their lives avoiding. Seneca's teaching on anger reduces to a single hard recognition: the rage we mistake for strength is in fact a surrender, a brief madness that costs the one who feels it far more than the one who provoked it, and its cure is not suppression but the patient refusal to act before reason has returned. What this asks of you is nothing dramatic, only that in the moment your calm breaks, you grant yourself the delay in which the fire burns itself out. The Stoics did not read philosophy. They practiced it every single day. Subscribe to continue. And if you want to build that daily practice yourself, there is a Stoic daily journal in the description. 365 exercises based on the same principles Marcus, Epictetus, and Seneca used. $14. It is the most direct path I know. Any books referenced today are also linked below.